Hey kids, guess what? It is pickled red onion time. And this is what I made the other day for when we had burgers and the broccoli soup. I made it and put it on the meatloaf we had the other night, and that was really, really good. So I'm going to make another batch and show you what we do with the leftover juice from the previous batch. So stand by. Let me show you what we got ready for the cook. Okay, so on the stove, I've got my saucepan. We're going to need that here in a little bit. I have my red onions, quite a few of them. I have saved some of the skin. I'm going to show you and tell you about what that's about all here in a minute. I've got my apple cider vinegar. I like to use the one that has what they call mother in it, which is not refined and really, well, anyhow, it's much better. Got me some garlic, which I've sliced up into little tiny slivers here. Some granulated sugar and some kosher salt and some water. And that's it. So I'm going to stand by just a minute and show you how we slice up these onions. Okay, so if you're like me, my mom never really taught me how to take and properly peel an onion. So I've been watching some of the chefs online, and actually once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. So the first thing you do is you cut it in half. Leave the hairy end on the onion, okay? Then what you want to do is go ahead and just peel the outside layer off, like so. Okay, again, still leave the hairy end on. And then for the pickled red onions, I'm just going to slice them kind of thin. I want to hold that up here to where you could see that comparison to my end of my finger there. See, it's pretty thin. So this is what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to slice all this stuff up and get a whole bunch of these half circles, and then I'm going to stuff them into a clean quart jar. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I've cut up one so far, and as you can see, it's starting to fill up my jar a little bit. And I'm going to do onions, and then I'm going to add some of the garlic to it here. Just kind of layer it at the moment. And then cut up some more onions and more garlic until I get about right here, because I want to make enough, sure I make enough liquid that's going to go over top of this for the pickling process. So I'm only going to fill the jar up maybe 2/3 of the way full. So that's what we'll be in just a minute. Okay, kids, while I'm still working on the onions and getting those into the jar, I'm going to start the pickling mixture that we're going to have on the stove. Let me show you what we need to put into that. Okay, I've got my saucepan here. I've got it on like a medium heat. And into this, we're going to add some of the apple cider vinegar. Okay. Some water. And since we're fighting diabetes and high blood pressure in my household, I have really restricted how much sugar and how much salt that I'm putting in. And what we're going to do is just going to let this warm up a little bit and get to simmer, and then we're going to start using that on top of our mixture. Okay, we got everything in the mixture on the stove. We're going to let it simmer, and when that's done, we'll put it over top of the onions. Okay, our liquid is steaming. Our onions and garlic are into our jar, and now I'm going to show you what we're going to do with these things here. Now, if you remember the other day when I made these for the burgers that we had with the broccoli soup, when they came out, they weren't really super dark pink. So I'm going to try an experiment this time by putting a little bit of the onion skin in there and then adding our liquid for it. It should remove some of that pink loveliness out of that as we do it. So now we're going to take and just pour this on top of our onions here very carefully. Oh, goody. Yeah, we got enough that covers all of it. That's wonderful. All right, now what I'm going to do here for this now, oops, besides throw things on the floor here for a moment, is I'm going to just take a little spoon and dabble stuff in there. What we're trying to do is to get rid of all of the extra air that might be down in here from when we put our onions in the jar. Make sure everything is submerged as best as we possibly can. And then this is going to go into the fridge here as soon as it cools off. About a half an hour. Okay, so we got everything in our jar. We got our lid on it. I'm going to stick that in the fridge here in a little bit as soon as it cools off. But this is the leftover liquid that we had from the last time, the first batch that we made. So the hubby says, well, why not just throw some cucumbers in there and pickle those nice for something like just a fresh snack. So I'm going to prep the cucumbers here. I'm going to skin a little bit of them here on the outside, and I'll show you what that looks like, and then plop them in this juice and stick it in the fridge. Okay, So kids, the leftover juice from the last time we made the pickled red onions, this is what we're going to do with it. We're going to put some cucumbers in them, stick them in the fridge, and give it a taste later on. I think it'll be great on sandwiches or just about anything else, maybe munching just right out of the jar. But let me show you what I'm going to do with those. Okay, I've taken my cucumbers, I've popped off the ends because generally those are a little bit on the bitter side, and I've just given it a very gentle peel. And then what I've been doing here is I'm taking them, I'm slicing them on a diagonal here. You can see Mr. Cucumber's on a diagonal here. And then I'm going to just stick this stuff down in this juice and put it in the fridge. Now, it's probably going to need quite a bit because it's floating, but that's all right. The juice, from what I understand, is good for a couple different times, but I think I'm only going to use it just this one extra time for the pickled cucumbers and then discard it. So I'll show you what that looks like as soon as it's done. Okay, so I got the cucumber cut up. Let me show you how thick the slices are. Let's see if you can tell that based upon my finger here. See, they're not very thick at all. Just tiny things. And we're going to go ahead and stuff them in here. And then I'll shake them up, make sure they get all completely covered with the liquid, and stick them in the fridge. They're probably going to need a day or two. I'll check them later, but we'll see how it does. So I think that's all there is for this one. I hope you enjoy this one too. I think we are. Can't be much better than pickled cucumbers. Tastes good to me. Be blessed. Enjoy.